Today is Wellness Wednesday. We want to talk about men's health by decade. Okay, I love that.
Me too.
And what you should be doing for your health from your 20s all the way to your 60s and even beyond that.
Yes, okay, because we live in a whole lot longer than 60.
We are.
So joining us live this morning is Dr. Matthew Weissman, a.k.a. Dr. Matt. He's the site chair for the Department of Medicine at Mount Sinai's Beth Israel Hospital, New York Eye and Ear Infirmary, and Mount Sinai downtown. There he is. Dr. Weissman, pleasure having you.
Thanks for having me.
We need your expert advice today, this month especially. Very important. Before we begin, why is it, I mean, maybe this is just the men that I know in my life, my friends and family, but it just seems like so many men will do anything to avoid A, addressing that there's an issue, acknowledging there's an issue, and then B, going to the doctor. Can you talk to us about that?
You know, it's so true. And there was a study that came out a couple of years ago that said only about 40% of men go to their doctor for regular preventive care, and 60%, as you said, come in just for when they're having a problem, and often it's a real problem. And often the men that I see say, you know, that they came in because their wives or their partners or their girlfriends told them they had to come in. That's their reason for being there. So that's part of why I'm happy to be here, is to really encourage people to come in for preventive care throughout all their decades.
That's right, so important. And he's a guy too, okay, everybody at home? So we were smart enough to bring in a man to tell you it's okay to go to the doctor.
And I just had my physical too, so
There you
I
go.
live it too.
Clean bill of health?
Clean bill of health.
Beautiful.
Love to hear it. You know, I can attest to everything you just said. I am always that person with my brother, not so much my dad, my son's father. It's like, hey, when's the last time you got a checkup? They're like, you're always at the doctor. I'm like, yeah. But in your 20s and 30s, I feel like this is something you should be doing as a man as well, not waiting far beyond that.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the 20s and 30s, we do fewer blood tests and stuff than people sometimes think, but it's a really important time to take a good family history, to talk about modifiable risk factors, making sure people are eating healthy and getting enough exercise and not drinking and smoking too much. And it's also a good time to update vaccines.
Yes.
A lot of people get, for example, their tetanus shot when they're 11. That's the one for like stepping on a rusty nail. And you need that every 10 years. So if you got it at 11, you're due at 21. I want you to come in so we can give it to you.
Beautiful.
And the other thing I would say about 20s and 30s is sexual health. And so we talk a lot, especially to men who have sex with men, around pre-exposure prophylaxis, to protect themselves against HIV. We do STD testing, all those kinds of things to assess risk and keep people healthy.
It's very important, and knowledge is power. You have to know these things. You can't just be, oh, it'll be fine, brush it under the rug. So that's 20s and 30s. Let's get into the 40s, where things I'm imagining start to shift. So what should we be focusing on and doing in our 40s as a man?
That's right. So, 20s and 30s, we check cholesterol sometimes. In 40s, we really focus on weight and blood pressure and cholesterol, checking those kinds of things. At 45, they say 45 is the new 50 for colorectal screening.
Yes.
And so it's a really important time. There's more early onset colorectal cancer. And so for average people who are having symptoms, they should come in sooner.
Yeah.
But people with no symptoms, with not a high risk family history, by 45, they should be getting screened for colorectal cancer. And nowadays, that can be either a test like a colonoscopy, where they use a camera to look and take out polyps and make sure everything's okay, or a stool-based test like FitDNA, where they can send a kit to your home, and you can send that sample back, and they can test for blood or for cancer cells. And so really there are less invasive ways to get the testing done that we really need to get tested.
Okay, so it's nothing, we don't have to be afraid.
Don't be scared.
Don't have to be scared. We just get up in there and do
That's
our
the
thing.
message I want to get out.
Yes.
I love that.
All right.
And so for men in their 50s, what should we be doing there?
So 50s, there's an increase in the sort of testing we need to do, and also an increase in the vaccines. So for people who've smoked, 50 to 80, there's a new guideline for lung cancer screening, for getting a CAT scan every year. And it's important to talk about the pros and cons of that testing with your doctor. And then shingles vaccine, that starts at age 50.
Yep.
And so we want to make sure that we're, again, assessing risks, doing that testing. And then I also push for exercise, and especially as people get older, to think not just about cardio or weightlifting, maybe that they've been doing in the past, but also flexibility training.
Yes.
Either yoga or Pilates or stretching on their own, something to make sure that they maintain their flexibility as they get older.
I love this full rounded approach.
Yes.
Move your body, everybody. All right, and finally, how about for men in their 60s and beyond?
So So again, it's thinking about those same things. It's thinking about vaccines, and by 65, most people need a pneumonia vaccine if they haven't had it already. It's thinking about cancer screening. So we talked about lung cancer screening, which continues to about 80. We didn't talk yet about prostate cancer screening, but the PSA test, not the best test out there. It has pros and cons, so you have to individualize that conversation. But for average risk people, we often start around 55 and go till about 70, sometimes earlier, sometimes later. Colonoscopies continue every 10 years. And there's a special screening for men to look for a swelling in the aorta and the big blood vessel in your abdomen. That's for men who've smoked somewhere in that decade between 65 and 75 to make sure it gets taken care of.
This is all wonderful. And I would like to just point out that a lot of what you've said, you know, they're not recommending that you get an annual physical just because they want to see you and hang out with you. It's yes, if you have an issue, go, but it's preventative too. So you have to see the doctor less.
Yeah.
And if you're going and you're keeping up with everything that Dr. Matt has recommended,
regularly,
then you don't have to continue to go to the doctor.
Yeah.
Preventative as well. Well, Dr. Matt, thank you so much for being here and for sharing this knowledge with us. Very
Thanks
important.
for having me.